Hi, everyone. Welcome to Maroon Tube and our film event where we have a post discussion of Welcome to Chechnya. Hopefully, you all signed up and you were able to watch the documentary. I watched it twice. It was powerful. It was moving. It was brutal a little bit. The second time, especially when you especially know like what's happening. It's a really powerful one. No wonder it won a bunch of awards. We'll get into that. But I'm Zachary Dalton, a producer here at Maroon Tube. I'm joined by Aspyn, and Aspyn's going to introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Aspyn. You may know me from being president of Lambda or doing work with the Diversity Peer Educators LGBTQ Services Office. It's great to be here and be able to talk about this and provide the entire campus a opportunity to learn about it.
Before we get started, too, I just want to say special thanks to Dr. Kuhar for all the work that she put into this. She was there at the very beginning. It was really her event, and she came to us, and we were so happy to be part of it. Special thanks to Sin Boswell for everything he's done. He's the tech guy running the stream because I don't know what I'm doing with that type of stuff. And then also thank you to Joe Boucher for everything that he's done to help us make this a reality. For those of you wondering who's with us, we're going to go ahead and introduce them. So I'm going to let Aspyn.
I'm here to introduce Maxwell Anderson. He is a documentary editor based in Queens, New York. He has edited the award-winning feature films No Fear, No Favor and The Only Real Game by director Mira Bank, the latter featuring Oscar award-winning actress Melissa Leo. He was additional direct editor on Dave France's Welcome to Chechnya, which took home the award for Best Editing of a U.S. documentary at the 2020 Sundance Film Festival. After graduating from New York University with a BFA in cinema studies, he started out in production on films by Jonathan Demme, Gus Van Sant, Mike Nicholas, and Steven Spielberg. He has worked as an assistant editor with filmmakers Tia Lesson and Carl Deal, Citizen Coach, and Tanaz Essagayan, Love Crimes on Kabul, and Haba Beller in the Land of Pomegranates, among others. He is proud to have worked with acclaimed editors Mary Lamson, Victor Livingston, Jonathan Oppenheim, Nancy Baker, and Jing Sin during his career.
Hello. And then also joining us is, wait, did you introduce, who did you, Maxwell?
Yes.
Okay. Then Igor Myakotin. He's a filmmaker and an artist based in New York. He's a co-producer, assistant editor, and additional camera on Welcome to Chechnya, Sundance 2020 U.S. Documentary Competition, winner of the Special Jury Award for Editing, Berlin International Film Festival, Panorama Teddy Activist Award. His latest short documentary, Swan Song, was invited to premiere at Big Sky Documentary Film Festival 18 and received an award for outstanding documentary filmmaking at the 38th Fine Cuts at the New School in New York City. Igor worked as a cinematographer on Melody Gilbert's feature documentary Silicone Soul, DOC NYC 2018, the Thessaloniki Documentary Film Festival 2018. He is an alumnus of Next Doc, a year-long fellowship that brings together emerging documentary storytellers, from diverse backgrounds across the country with award-winning documentary filmmakers to learn, share, and build their skills, and a member of the Video Consortium. That's our guests. I'm going to now let them kind of take it away and talk about themselves, the documentary, Welcome to Chechnya, and near the end of it, we'll have a Q&A session where you guys can ask questions that you have thought of and you want to, answers to. And I will be moderating that in the comments. I do want to make you guys aware there's about a 30-second delay between what we say and what the comments are. So if it doesn't seem like I'm ignoring your, or if it seems like I'm ignoring your question, I'm not. It's just taking me a little bit to talk about it.
Hi everyone. Hi Max.
Igor, you should start because you started earlier on the project than I did.
Right. So let me tell you, just a little bit about how I started working on this film, and then I think Max and I will try to have some sort of a conversation, a discussion, so it feels more natural and casual. But I started working on this film in 2017 when my first day in the office in August, David France was already filming in Russia. He was embedded already in this safe house there with people, with the characters that you see on screen right now in the film. And he had been filming for about a couple of weeks at that time. And I was just really by myself sitting in the office while he was working with our cinematographer and Russian producer in Russia, Askald Kurov, who filmed most of the film over these years. And really, David has heard about this story before, but it slowly went away from the media, from the attention of the world. And while reading an article by Masha Gessen, who is our executive producer, one of our executive producers in the film, after reading her article about what was going on in Chechnya, he decided that he should probably pursue this as a film, and that it was a good idea. And that's how it really started. He was on a book tour in Scotland. The book was How to Survive a Plague, beautiful book that he wrote about the AIDS epidemic in the 80s and 90s in the United States. And he didn't even finish it. He had to flee to Russia and start filming immediately there in August. And that's really how it started. So this was my start. I just wasn't really sure what I was getting myself into. I think at that moment I was just David's assistant, and his latest film, the previous film, The Death and Life of Marsha P. Johnson, was just coming out on Netflix, and he was filming in Russia in this shelter. Everything was very secretive, and from the very start he said we have to develop a protocols of how we're going to handle this footage, how we're going to approach this subject, and how we're going to protect the characters. And so we had to come up with elaborate protocols that were constantly changed and updated over time about how to properly handle everything from how you communicate with characters to how you handle the footage, because the risk was so high because of the really criminals and vigilantes that were in Chechnya, that had diasporas all over the world, and could really, there were cases when the opposition leaders who fled Chechnya were really targeted in other European countries and even murdered. So we knew that the stakes were high, and we couldn't put ourselves, but most importantly, the subjects, the characters of the film, in danger. So we really had to figure out extensive protocols of how to properly handle the footage, how to set up an edit suite where the footage wouldn't even touch the internet at all times. And Max can speak more about that in detail. But really, it was about a proper communication with the subjects, and always have a ongoing consent with them, because for them we had to explain what it involved, what it will involve being in this documentary, because I don't know if they realized really that we didn't know that the film, we're gonna have to we'll premiere on HBO, and we'll premiere at Sundance and go to Berlin and win all these awards. We didn't really know that it would go there, but we hoped it would. So it would reach the biggest audience ever in the world. we hoped, but we really had to make sure that our characters were on the same page with us about the fact that if it does go big, and they get a lot of attention, and maybe some attention that they don't want to, do they really want to be in the film? Do they want to have their face covered? Do they want to have their voice changed? So it was all about proper communication with the characters and the subjects of the film. And after filming, for some time, we started the edit process. Well, actually, I think we started editing as we were filming. And this was, I think filming and editing at the same time, like filming while editing, really sort of informs, I think, how you edit, right? Max, would you agree?
Yeah. I don't think I've ever, well, I shouldn't say that, but yes, definitely, right. Especially for a topic like this that is happening, world events currently shaping the world now. But and let me ask you this is actually something I don't know. Was the need to find, well, Anya, our character Anya, she was filmed very late. So did David know that he had to go and find a character as maybe with as compelling a storyline or as charismatic as Maxime? Was that discovered in the editing process, and that there was something else that needed to maybe flesh out the lesbian storyline? I don't know. I'm asking because I don't know the answer.
Yeah, I think definitely. I think I'm not. It's hard to speak for him, but I feel like trying to remember what it was like in the edit room and in the office, because we would always talk about the different versions of the film. Right. I think the idea was to have. We really wanted to have a rescue mission depicted on camera and be in the film. And I think this was just we were very lucky in a way that the Russian LGBT network had an active ongoing case, and they decided to go and have us with them to film that mission. And it happened to be about this girl, Anya, who was the daughter of a high-ranking official in Chechnya, who really was afraid for her safety because of her uncle was making moves on her, and was going to reveal her identity to her family, which in Chechnya means if your family finds out that you're lesbian or gay, they might really, if not. The best they could do is say you have 1 hour and just go, and the worst is that you're going to be murdered by your own family. So I think in a way that storyline with Anya was just so, I hate to say it, but it was in a way perfect, because it really showed that what women go through in Chechnya, and especially queer women, LGBT women, and it really showed what it's like actually to see these people at work, the activists at work, and what it looks like. Because when you think of activism and of saving people, you imagine all this, I don't know, sort of James Bond scenes, and it sort of looks like it in this film, and in a way, because in a way it is, but it's also in a way very, very mundane. You have to make it look real when you do it. So it was also interesting to depict that in a way. And then later what happened to her was very, very unfortunate, but it happens a lot when because of such long wait times for visas. Unfortunately, people just can't wait for months and months in the middle, in the like no man's zone really, and they have to go somewhere, and sometimes they go back to their families.
Yeah, and so that actually happened while I was on the project. I came on the project very late. They had already shot most of the footage, almost all of the footage, and had gone through many different kinds of cuts that I never even saw. But I did see a screening in December of 2018 when I first started, or maybe it was November. And the editing continued to take place between December of 2018 and February of 2019, so a few more months. And during that time, it changed a lot as well. But and one of the things that changed was Anya's storyline, and she sort of dropped off, and we hadn't heard from her. And I think maybe one of the last principal pieces of footage that we got was the phone call that was shot, where David, who's running a lot of the rescues, gets the phone call, and Anya's expressing frustration. And then, of course, David would inform us of what he found out later. So that all was happening, and you know, so a lot of stuff was happening right down to the last minute of how that story shaped up. So we didn't know which way that would go. I think we all hoped that she would, you know, stay safe and stay out of Russia and stay out of Chechnya and be safe. But I mean, you know, it didn't work out that way, and that tells the story too. So now I was brought in because of the technology, and I mean, I didn't do any of the the technological stuff of changing people's faces, but I was just in my history as having experience as an assistant editor, sort of being able to shepherd that process of getting the new faces in, and making sure it's well organized and making sure that we're on track. We don't have any problems going into the online. And I think we thought we'd be finishing up in summer of 2019, something like that.
Yeah, I think the idea was to have it to be ready somewhere then, or even earlier, in almost like half a year before it actually premiered. And would you say, well, why do you think we weren't ready when we wanted to be ready, like, well, planned? Why do you think?
Oh, I mean, I think because the tech, we went with the kind of technology that it was literally cutting edge. It was never done before. Although maybe you've heard of deep fakes, and it's been used in all sorts of bad ways. And you've seen Obama being, you know, a fake Obama video out there. But I think it's never been done like this. And you're seeing it more and more. But I think whenever you see like a movie clip where somebody's face is swapped out, that's like under optimal lighting conditions, where and you're dealing with actors, so their face has been filmed, you know, many there's hours and hours of footage of them to train a computer to process that face. And we didn't necessarily have that, in the sense that the subjects, you know, we had footage of the subjects often in dark lighting, low quality lighting. Even some of the intercepted videos in the film, that's scraped off the internet. Some of that stuff is lower quality than standard def, lower than standard def quality. And so to be able to get acceptable images where we swapped out those faces with new faces, it just was a lot harder than we were anticipating. And that our effects guy, who, you know, did an amazing job, he invented this technology, but it just took a lot longer. And as we were going, sort of, I get the credit of co-editor or additional editor, because we changed the story as we were going. The original idea was that the faces would be seamless, or as close to it as possible, so that people would forget that the characters that we weren't seeing the actual footage of them. I mean, not because people didn't know that they needed to be covered up, but just because they became so engrossed in the story. And when it became clear to us that that was not going to be the case, David, our director, realized we had to make a few changes. So first of all, there were a lot of little things so I came into the project because I know Tyler Walk, and he's the main editor of the film. But by the time I came in, he largely walked away. he moved on to another project, and the story was locked as far as he was concerned. But little tweaks needed to be made. So, for example, if a shot was like 99% there, a VFX shot, but there was a few frames where maybe the face fell off a little bit, or there was, we had all sorts of little artifacts that would come by, and we had to, we had a documentary budget, and couldn't do everything that we wanted to do, and time was slipping away. So we had to make some choices. Sometimes we swapped out a shot. Sometimes a few frames had to be trimmed here and there. Sometimes I did it like a fake refocus, rack focus effect, which nobody's ever said anything. Apparently it goes by and everybody buys it. So that's good. But we even re-edited some scenes. So one of the clip that we have to show is an example of that. And I don't have a before and after, but this is the first half a dozen or so shots where you're being introduced to this effect of the face swap. And in this clip, we deliberately, the way it was originally cut by Tyler, there was a lot more dialogue, maybe twice as much dialogue, explaining about the shelter and the process of having people come in who needed rescuing. But we needed people to sit with the faces more. So we trimmed down because we didn't want people reading the subtitles, we trimmed down the dialogue and re-edited the sequence of pictures so that you could sit and watch, especially this shot, which has, I think, 4 characters in it. So yeah, we can play that.
Когда это все начало происходить, потому что мы все понимали, что это катастрофа, что это вопрос о спасении не 2-3 людей, а сотен людей. Нужно было людей скрывать, потому что на них велась охота. Разработали строгие протоколы по безопасности. Сейчас мы начнем заниматься экстренным переселением и постараемся вовлечь международное сообщество.
Вот я буду, да, мы с тобой здесь будем спать, вместе с тобой здесь будем спать. Здесь будем спать. Да, что я тебе кровать отдам свою.
Хоть
У нас тут мексиканский сериал.
Когда это все начало происходить, потому что мы все понимали, что это катастрофа, что...
So not only did we do the re-editing that I mentioned, but the VFX were deliberately made to look a little bit more noticeable than they needed to be. Like we actually downgraded a bit some of the artifacts. So you might see some of the extra glow around their face, for example, or some extra fuzziness. So that's just an example of one thing that changed. The other big thing that changed, and that was very, very late in the process. So, the editing just kept going. It never stopped being edited. So now fast forward to December of 2019, when we really have to finish the film. We had this dramatic scene of Grisha, who becomes Maxime by revealing his face, by taking the choice to talk to the media. And originally, the face reveal happened at the end of the scene. Again, under the assumption that people are going to forget, so they'll just be absorbed. And then at the end, the big face reveal would be the big button on the scene, because you'd be like, oh, that's right, now he's exposed. That is his real face, that you would have forgotten, and then you would have been surprised. We didn't think that was really going to work. And so now it's almost like the process of the cameras going off that reveals his face for him. So once his picture is taken in front of the press, then his face comes off. And then it's still very dramatic. I think it was actually a big improvement. It was a smart choice by David France. But that was the other scene where I had a hand in the edit there. So
I would say that was too like, oh, sorry, Igor, go ahead.
So I was just gonna ask Max, do you remember how many like visual effect shots we had, like around 400, right, or something like that.
I think it was.
Right.
I don't think it was quite. I don't think I ever saw the 3-digit with the 4 in front of it. I think we were 300 and
300 and something, right? Almost
or something like that.
Right, and right. So these are like each shot. If something was off in one of those shots, we had to sort of go back and figure out what's wrong, and then go back and forth, right? Having several versions. I remember like last months before the premiere, before Sundance, it was very feverish because there was just so much data, and I felt like you were just handling so much information coming in and out all the time as we were, color correcting the film before like tomorrow we have to send it, and we're there at like 1 a.m.
Yeah,
working.
We went a day over our color correct. They let us because we needed to, and we were getting VFX shots until January 10th, I think, which was definitely
right.
after we thought we needed to get them.
Right, 10 days before the premiere.
Yeah, we
Right.
the film needed to get to Sundance so they could play it, and so it was hard. We had charts and charts and charts, and we had like I said, we had to make some choices. So some of the choices were to change the shot if we could get away with it, so that it didn't have a face in the shot, or we would do one of these tricks, or we would send it back to our guy Ryan and say, listen, put it in the oven again, and so we had a number system. Like 10 was highest priority, or maybe it was 1 was the highest priority. I don't remember at this point.
Many charts.
We had it all down. Like, okay, we got to knock off the 7s first, and then the 8s, and then the 9s, and whatever it was. But yeah, it was really hard to track all that.
And then how amazing
we pulled it off.
Right. How amazing was it being there in Utah, in the mountains, right? And seeing the people that are heroes really on the screen.
Oh yeah.
With the audience, and how audience was just interacting with them and reacting to the film. How did you feel? How did you feel at the premiere? Do you remember?
Yeah. Yes.
How was it?
It was very moving. I mean,
right.
Our producer Alice cried. Maybe many people cried, but I think having some of our characters there to share in that, I mean, it was meaningful to me. I'm sure it was to them. I'm sure Maxime's life has changed completely since then, starting then and through to now. You mentioned to me that he brought his family, who are also featured in the film, to a premiere in Europe somewhere.
Maybe not.
Oh.
They're always in hiding in a way.
Oh yeah.
Especially now that the film is out, so they're always,
of course,
somewhere trying to be as safe as possible. But yeah, they're doing well. It was really great seeing them there at a film festival and seeing the audience just come up to them in tears, and they not being able to speak the same language, but emotionally they were on the same level, and people just couldn't say anything. They would just give them like $100 bills and just tell them like, we wish you well, say hi to your mother, who's such a hero also in the film.
Yeah.
In Maxime's family. Yeah. And that was just so incredible to see them there in person, and receiving that support and that love from all the people that they don't receive enough. And I think that gave them a really good boost, I hope, of energy and of sort of faith that, it's worth keep going and keep doing what they're doing, I think.
Yeah, well, they took a huge risk agreeing to make the film, as did everyone else. And so I certainly hope they feel that way. I that it was worth it. Yeah.
Well, I hate to cut in because I'm just enjoying listening to you guys kind of like talk, reminisce, like ask. I mean, you guys both asked each other questions that I had after watching the film. So thanks for answering some of mine. We're going to go ahead and open it up to Q&A on the YouTube. To buy some time, though, I guess my main question I really wanted to ask, because you guys were talking about deadlines. For either of you, was there ever a point that you just thought there's no way we're not going to make this deadline, or there was like thought of maybe pulling out of Sundance because you said you were editing like till 10 days before it, like, and if so, I guess like what was the viewpoint on that? Was it one of those? I'll just let you guys talk about it. That's my question.
What do you think, Igor?
That's a very good question. I think the biggest, I mean, there are festival deadlines that, you know, you miss, like, what can you do? But then I think the biggest deadline was really, it was really having the faces ready in a way where the people are really unrecognizable. And this was sort of, we either make it or we don't make it. And especially having Sundance, when we found out that the film got accepted there, we knew that it's either going to be this or nothing. Obviously, we cannot have a film that's not ready. I feel like this was the biggest, the most stressful, the sort of fear that it's just, it was either not possible, it was not possible to make it on time, to make the faces on time. How do you feel about that, Max?
Yeah, no, I for some reason, I guess I feel like, no, I never felt that we weren't going to make any kind of deadline. I just thought it was very stressful. And we went back and we, you know, I think we settled for certain shots in whatever state they were in. Like I said, we went a day over, and that extra day really was just, we were down to like 3 or 4 of the most late breaking in terms of getting the VFX shots and most complicated VFX shots. So it was only like 3 or 4 shots. So it's not like the film wasn't going to be finished in some way for Sundance. I didn't feel that way. It was just, was it up to the standard of what we ultimately hoped for? And I think we got very, very, very close, and obviously good enough to win an award, which is great. But
congratulations, by the way. I mean,
yeah,
because it's an editing award, so I feel like it was very. I was very surprised in a very good way, and I think you could see that the work that you and Tyler and Victor did together, it was really appreciated, because it's not always, it's usually, it's at festivals, you know, there are just, you know, prizes for best documentary, best fiction film, and usually fiction films are the ones that get all the awards for all the specific parts, for the actor and for director and for editing and supporting actor and so on. With documentaries, I feel like it's usually best documentary, and that's all you get, and you should be happy about it. That's it. But it's also, you know, a film, it's also a craft, and everyone is doing such a incredible and difficult work, and everyone is just giving all of themselves to work on this project for so many reasons. And I feel very good, and I feel very fortunate that I have worked with someone like you, whose work has been acknowledged by Sundance, which is, I think, incredible. And I think there's so many reasons why you know, they would do that, just by what you were talking about, the scene, the reveal scene of the face. I think being in the audience and watching this with the audience and seeing how they react to that scene, even I remember hearing gasps, and people were like, "Oh wow!" Because when you work on the film, you sort of forget, you lose that excitement of surprise, and when you watch it with the audience, I feel like you gain it again in a way. And it was really amazing to see people react to those cuts, to those edits. Like, a really good job.
I mean, Tyler Walk is our editor. He deserves that award. I mean, I'm grateful that I didn't screw it up. but Igor, you need to take more credit. I mean, you had your hand in everything, even the edit. So, you know,
I was just really helping Max with a couple of things. It was just
no, I walked in, I knew Tyler, I knew Alice, our producer, from two previous different projects. I knew each of them. And so that's how I sort of got invited to be part of this film, which was incredible. But by the time I got there, I had to leave my phone outside of the edit room. All the security protocols had to be explained to me. And I know, Igor, you had something to do with that, as you've explained. So you were instrumental. You were, obviously you speak Russian. You were speaking to our characters over the phone, doing real producer work that was really, obviously, these are lives and hanging in the balance. So, I mean, I was always impressed by you. So,
thank you.
Aspyn, do you have any questions you would like to ask? If not, we do have a couple coming in over on the YouTube that I'd be more than happy to ask for him.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, a lot of the questions we're getting on the YouTube is about being able to stomach the film. And I will say, like, as a queer person, I think it's difficult to watch for everyone. However, I do not think I could have worked on this film. I would have had to leave. So how did you cope? Like, it had to be hard to work on, period.
Igor, you should answer that.
Yes, I'm going to speak about my own perspective, and it was definitely very personal, the subject of the film, and being from Russia and being queer myself, it was very difficult at times. But at the same time, I had this drive in me that the story had to be told no matter what. And since I'm in this position, in this time, in this place, given this opportunity to work on this film, it was definitely yes, I'm gonna do it no matter what. And because this is happening to my people, I felt like it had to be done. It was sort of on the edge of filmmaking and activism, and this is what I feel like drew me to work on this project, but also created a shield that in a way protected me from being overly exposed to what's happening there. And I did notice that over time, as you watch the film more and more, as I've said before, you get really desensitized. You get really numb to what's happening on the screen, even though you're still driven by the mission and the goal. But it's just, I feel like also your body works in a certain way that it sort of blocks it at some point, because it is very difficult really to watch and traumatic. And we filmed over 200 hours, and these are just, there's also so many more stories that are very tragic, and so much more footage that didn't make it into the film. So I feel like it was the drive to make it happen, to tell the story, that there was no way back. I know that was driven by my personal sort of character. What about you, Max? Because you came in a bit later. So how did you react to
one of the things
film
that came in while I was there was the rape footage, which, I mean, that, yeah, you do generally get desensitized, but boy, that was hard to take every time. And it was audible too. So even just being in the other room, if somebody came, people would come in to screen it because we were trying to sell the film, and you'd hear it every time. And, it wasn't pleasant, but I don't know. I think as an editor who's worked on other projects, it's never easy, but it's just a fact of life that it's your job, and if you're going to be telling compelling stories in the documentary world, you're going to come across some really bad stuff. And sometimes, not always, not necessarily, but I've seen, I applied for a job and didn't get it once, but the footage was just, I mean, it was gruesome. So I mean, I've seen some really bad stuff. I mean, you get desensitized. I mean, there's no nice way to say that. It's just the way it is.
Right.
And actually, that's one of the challenges in editing, is to try to remind yourself, oh, people are going to see this for the first time. You know, you have to remind yourself what is special, or what that's like to see it for the first time, whether it's shocking or not. And it's hard as an editor to keep trying to put yourself in that position, because you have seen it hundreds of times, or whatever it is, dozens of times at least.
Yeah, and I think because the goal is really to make someone who watches the film, by watching the film, by dedicating 2 hours on this topic, really learning more about what's happening there, and also being angry in a way that the United States did not accept any refugees, and then in general the immigration, because of the immigration system and because of what's happening and the administration, but also being angry enough that you would do hopefully something, either donate through the website to these organizations on the ground that are doing such an important work, or spread the word about the film, because we're really all witnesses to what's happening there. Because of what you just saw, you are a witness, because the Russian government is really denying what's happening in the republic. So it's really important to do something, and we hope really that the film will make you do that.
You just actually answered one of the questions out there, which was, what were you hoping becomes of the film? And I feel like that's a very nice answer for it. This next one, I think, is actually more geared toward you, Max, but it's in the clip we showed, the cigarette smoke and the scene where you kind of mentioned there was like a blur around. The smoke seemed to like linger in the air. How did you manage to do that? Was it something that was visual effects, or are Russian cigarettes just like that?
No, that was the way it was. That was in the original footage. It was a beautiful shot. It was chosen well by Tyler. And yeah, no, that was not an effect. And there was a lot of smoking in the footage, and in the footage we didn't use too.
A lot of it. There was one, logistics wise, I mean, we talked about you get desensitized to it, but what was the hardest scene to either, I guess, for you watch, or even to film and to just witness for you guys personally?
I don't know. I think that, any of those archival, like what we mean by archival is found footage. So this intercepted footage. I mean, that's always hard. That's hard to take. I mean,
yeah.
Igor.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. These were the hardest pieces of evidence.
Because it's being passed around as a trophy video. It's filmed by the perpetrator. So just it's just so gross to think that this would be something that your friends would want to see, and
Well, we can move on from that too, but I agree. I feel like any of the archival footage that was shown, it was tough. But somebody had asked, how much of your time did you spend working on the film on site versus at home? And how much difference did being there make on your experience and the choices you make?
I think, I don't know if the question is about the fact that a lot of people work from home now because of the global pandemic. Because we finished the film really in January, and we weren't really going, so to speak, to the office. Just some of us, but we really finished the film at that moment when the global pandemic started. So we didn't have to work from home. If I'm getting the question right? What do you think, Max?
Yeah, and also a lot of documentaries, and especially probably now as a result of COVID, there are people who use their own computers at home and work remotely just to save money, but we couldn't do that. For security purposes, we weren't going to be sharing footage over the internet. The computers had to be completely off the internet. So no, we were in the office pretty much the whole time. in terms of the post-production. Obviously, the shooting had to happen in various countries, not just Russia.
You have mentioned like security purposes and security efforts. Can you talk about some of them? Is that possible? I know you mentioned not bringing a phone into the editing room, but was there other methods put in place to like really protect everything?
I mean, I can speak about the footage, handling the footage. Igor probably can speak about a lot more than just that. Like the way it was shot, I would love to hear some of that. But like, for example, you know, our footage is destroyed now. You know, normally you would carefully archive everything, but we weren't going to do that. Once we have our final film, you know. So, for example, that's one thing. You know, the drives while we were working were encrypted, which means Igor had a Igor. We would always say, Igor, what's the password for this drive? He would always have it in his fingertips. But Igor, what about the shooting?
Yeah,
what about the filming in Chechnya? That scene with Anya.
Yeah, so for some of the shoots when we were filming, we had to really prepare in advance and even hire additional security advisors that would help us remotely. Mainly because it was involved physical security of people, so there could be in very close to in imminent danger. And David France was the one who came to Chechnya together with another cinematographer from Russia, Alexander Ivanova, and they went together to Chechnya to film. And I think we had to work for about a couple of weeks before we were actually able to film. Everyone was tracked. We were constantly monitoring each other's locations, and the location, I mean, of David and Sasha. And we had a cover story. David had a cover story that he was actually a football fan, because at that time an Egyptian team was training in Grozny, in the capital of Chechnya, and he had to have, you know, everything from the way he looked to what was on his phone, what kind of photographs he had there, and the stories that he could tell to the border patrol agents. And in fact, he was stopped and detained for briefly about what he was doing there in Chechnya, because when they see a foreigner, especially an American, they raise their eyebrows. They suddenly have a lot of questions for you if you're a foreigner in Chechnya, because usually they think you're there for no good reason. So David really did such an incredible job of being there. David France, the director, and he even managed to film some of the shots himself on an iPhone. And that's so this, you know, this is just a little bit what goes into it, and including our communication with everyone. That's also always encrypted. So nothing sensitive was ever sent over email or over phone, regular phone. So I think is there anything else? I think that's right. Anything else? I think might be forgetting something.
I mean, to make it look like you're just taking selfies or something like that. That's why you could use a phone in some of these high risk situations.
Oh, right. And so we couldn't use professional equipment. We couldn't hire a professional crew or had a sound person with us, because we couldn't be seen filming, especially in the shelter around these people, and especially in Chechnya. So for Aspyn, our cinematographer, he used a consumer camera. It was a little black Sony camera that filmed in 4K, but it was tiny and it looked very amateur. So we even put some tape on it and made it look like it was used. So Aspyn really was just pretending to be a tourist wherever he was going, especially at their airports. And one of the techniques that we had was holding a camera at your waist while the camera is connected to your phone, where you can see what's happening. You can see the feed from the camera, and you can also operate it from your phone. So for a regular person, you would look like someone on your phone just holding a camera around your waist, but in reality you're filming, and also filming on an iPhone or pretending to take a selfie. But filming in Chechnya was way more difficult than filming in the rest of Russia, because everyone is, if you are not from there, everyone is having their eyes on you and they're following you wherever you go. So you really had to be careful. And Alexandra, our cinematographer there, she did such a incredible job by having a GoPro mounted at her waist, but she was not able to actually see what was going on, what she was filming on that GoPro. So she really filmed the whole scene, the whole rescue scene, blindly. She really didn't see what was going on. So I think she really did an amazing job by just making sure, you know, she was capturing those very intense moments on camera. Yeah. So these were just, you know, about the cameras, and like Max said, in order to send the footage overseas across the borders, we had to come up with all sort of variations. Either, you know, it's definitely encrypted, definitely there are backups. So if the original hard drive is destroyed, we have a backup, and then only one person knew the keys, the passwords from the encrypted hard drives, and no one the person who was carrying them. So these were, you know, as you think more and more about this, you really come up with so many details that you can go into, because it seems very simple at first that, you know, the footage doesn't touch the internet and the drives are encrypted, but when you really do it on a daily basis, it becomes, there are many more things that you have to be aware of, and then it sort of becomes a part of your life and a part of your routine.
I think we have about time for, it depends on the answers, but maybe 2 more questions. You kind of touched on scenes where there was a time that like you felt you were in danger, or there was always like this constant kind of looking over your shoulder almost, just afraid, and you always have to have that background. But we had another question that asked, how do you find the line between powerful, necessary, but gut-wrenching footage versus pure sensationalism? So I guess how did you define that pretty much?
I mean, that was, you know, those were decisions made in the story edit, so I wasn't really part of that. You know, that's definitely, that's what they're considering. You know, what is the information that you need to convey the reality of these characters, but isn't exploitative. So I don't know, Igor, can you speak to that from your perspective? I mean,
yeah, I think there were several goals. One goal was really to present the evidence that Russia is really denying what's going on in Chechnya, and present the evidence of what's really happening there, and that these are real people, and these people exist, and these people are suffering, and something has to be done about it. And I think I am myself, the second goal was to really make, I think, people angry. I am angry myself because of what's happening there, and I feel like everyone else should be angry about what's happening with other human beings that are being wiped out from this earth just for who they are. And I think these were some of the directions that we were going into while thinking about, you know, using the type of footage. But we really did see that as evidence that was intercepted by the activists, who really got it from their, you know, perpetrators. Or, you know, some of these videos were even widely available on the web, and some of them still are. And so we really wanted to emphasize how horrible the situation there is, and that the world is really turning away from it and not doing anything.
I've just, I observed that, and maybe I just thought of this now, but it seems like one of the major reasons to include at least some of that footage is because Putin and Kadyrov are going to deny it, and they deny it. They just say it doesn't exist, it's not real. Well, nobody can say that if you put it in your movie. So I don't know. It seems like that's a motivation too. It's to catch these brutal dictators in a blatant lie. So
well, I guess the final question that could be asked was pretty much what has been you touched on a little bit, but what has been the response? Igor, I know you said you want the response to be anger, and I feel like a lot of people who do watch it are angry and are upset, but have you guys gotten different responses to the film? If so, what are they like?
I feel like the response was really sort of beyond our expectations, because you never know how people are going to react to, you know, something you've been working on for so long and you've been seeing so many times. So you said, I feel like right before the premiere, you just lose all expectations, and then the film has its own life and has its own journey. And I think the reaction that was really surprised me in a good way the most was the reaction in Russia, where people, when they first saw the trailer that dropped in May this year, it was watched over several million times and then spread around the Russian web so many times, and people really were curious about it. And then when the film was premiered, when the film premiered on HBO in end of June, and some of them were able to see the film, and then I could see in Russian Facebook or in different forums on Twitter in Russian people's response, and people were really shocked about what was happening. Some of them didn't know, but they were really motivated to do something about it. Even, you know, it could be just spreading the word like some of them are doing. But I was really sort of inspired by the reaction in Russia, and I really hope that, you know, I'm sure I have a sense that for the most part, these are the younger generation in Russia that's really, you know, is different from the older generations that sometimes are too traditional in Russia, and because of whom we have, you know, the newest amendment in constitution in Russia that the marriage is only between a man and a woman, and so they're driven by this traditionalist thinking. And so when I saw the reaction in Russia, I was really mesmerized in a very positive way. And then the film was shown at True Falls Film Festival in Missouri, where it received True Life Fund Award. And this is an award that goes directly to the characters, the subjects of the film, where the whole town is fundraising just for them. And so the Maxim Lapunov, one of the characters in the film, was chosen to be the recipient of that fund, and they raised over $30,000 for him to help his case at the European Court of Human Rights and to support his family that's been going through a lot lately. And so seeing how people are responding here in the United States, but also in Europe and in the whole world and in Russia, it's been I was really surprised in a positive way. And I hope it continues. And we have an extensive outreach and engagement campaign, impact campaign, trying to work with local communities, with local community leaders and local organizations in the United States, but also mostly in Europe, to pressure their governments to accept more refugees to their countries, to pressure countries like France and Germany, but also the Baltics, England, and so on, to pressure their governments to accept more refugees, but also create a better environment for the refugees that are coming to their countries, and to be able to offer the support system that they're often lacking because they don't know the language and they don't know the people. And for them, it's very stressful to be in a different place, not knowing anyone. So we're trying as hard as we can. And I feel like the response overall has been great. If that answers the question. Do you have anything to add, Max?
No. The reviews have been very good.
Yeah,
I mean, of course, we want it to impact people.
Right.
So, I mean, and in Russia especially. So. That's great to hear. I'm very glad to hear that.
Well, it seems like we are out of time. I just wanted to thank everybody for attending on the Maroon Tube. I wanted to thank you two, obviously, for coming and telling us about your movie, and offering to share this experience with us. I think it's really important. I was talking to some other people on campus, and it seems like a lot of the gay community on campus has heard about what's going on, but maybe not a lot of other people. And a lot of us were also kind of at a loss for anything we could do from over here. So I think this is a good time to plug the fact that if you go to the Welcome to Chechnya website, there is a comprehensive guide on how you can help if you feel so inclined. I'd also like to thank Professor Kuhar for organizing this, Sin for helping us out and streaming, and make sure you go watch the movie if you haven't already, or watch it again if you can handle that. Again, we just want to thank you so much for being willing to talk about this.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you for having us.
Thank you, guys. That'll be about it. That'll wrap up the talk. Don't worry, if you joined us from a class, I've written down where you're from. Your professors will say thank you pretty much. But everyone here at Maroon Tube, thank you so much. Thank you, Aspyn, for joining us. And thank you again to you two. This is really, really eye-opening. It was awesome to hear your experiences and everything. Till next time, we'll see you guys.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.